When I was 17, my best friend ruined my life in less than 30 seconds. It happened on a Tuesday, nothing dramatic, no shouting, no fight, just a single post. By the time I reached school that morning, everyone had already seen it. The small town of Willow Creek, where everybody knew everybody's business, felt like it had shrunk overnight. Our high school, with its faded brick walls and echoing hallways, turned into a coliseum where I was the unwitting gladiator. My phone would not stop vibrating. It buzzed like a swarm of angry bees trapped in my pocket, relentless and invasive. I pulled over on the side of Maple Street, the engine of my mom's old Honda still humming, and glanced at the screen. Notifications piled up like an avalanche, 50, 60, 70. My heart started pounding before I even swiped. Messages from classmates I barely knew. Screenshots forwarded in group chats I wasn't even part of. Laughing emojis exploding across threads. Those yellow faces mocking me with their open mouths and crinkled eyes. Questions that twisted like knives. Girl, what the hell? Is that really you? Oh my God, spilled the tea. And one sentence over and over again, typed in frantic caps. Is this you? At first I did not understand. My fingers trembled. As I unlocked the phone, the screen blurring slightly from the fog of my breath against the winter-chilled window. Willow Creek winters were brutal gray skies. Bare trees clawing at the clouds, but nothing compared to the chill that was about to settle in my bones. Then I opened Instagram. There it was. A photo of me, not a normal one. Not the kind from prom. Or beach days, or those awkward family barbecues where Aunt Rita forces everyone into matching sweaters. A private picture. One I had sent to someone I trusted. In a moment of vulnerability that now felt like the stupidest decision of my young life. It was me in my room, the fairy light strung across the headboard, casting a soft glow, wearing that lacy top I'd bought on a whim from the mall in the next town over. Innocent, or at least that's what I thought. Now it looked damning, exposed. Under the harsh fluorescence of public scrutiny, under it, the caption said, "Some girls pretend to be innocent." Hashtag Willow Creek Secrets, hashtag Not So Pure. The likes were already climbing 200, 300, 400. Comments flooded in. Slay Queen Hannah for the expos. El Mayo, Emily's done. Who even is she? Oh wait, the quiet one, figures. It was posted by Hannah Collins. My best friend since 4th grade. The girl who used to sleep at my house every weekend. Giggling under the covers until 2 a.m. about crushes and dreams and how we'd conquer the world together. The girl who knew every secret about me the time I shoplifted a candy bar and cried for days. The crush I had on Mr. Hargrove's literature class. The way my dad left when I was 10 and how it still made my chest ache on rainy nights. She was the one who'd held my hand through all of it, promising we'd always have each other's backs. She posted it at 10:42 p.m. The whole school had seen it. In a town like Willow Creek, where the population hovered around 5,000. And high school felt like the center of the universe. News traveled faster than the creek that wound through the old mill district. Kids shared it in homeroom, teachers whispered in the lounge, even the lunch ladies raised eyebrows when I grabbed my tray later that week. I could not breathe. The air in the car turned thick, suffocating, like I'd been plunged underwater. My vision tunneled, the dashboard blurring into a haze of panic. If you have ever felt your stomach drop so fast it feels like falling down an elevator shaft, plummeting 20 stories in the space of a heartbeat, you understand that moment. The world tilts, gravity betrays you, and suddenly, you're untethered. Spinning into freefall, I wanted to disappear, to melt into the cracked leather seat, to drive straight out of Willow Creek and never look back. But school waited, and so did the whispers. When I finally willed myself out of the car, my sneakers crunching on the frosted gravel of the parking lot, the hallway felt longer than usual. It stretched like a bad dream, the lockers blurring into a metallic gauntlet. People stopped talking when I passed, their conversations dying mid-sentence, replaced by loaded silences that screamed louder than words. Some laughed sharp staccato bursts that echoed off the tiles. Some stared, eyes wide with a mix of pity and prurience, like I was a sideshow freak. Some pretended not to see me, averting gazas with exaggerated nonchalance, but I could feel the heat of their judgment boring into my back. And then there was Hannah. She stood by her locker, third row from the gym doors, surrounded by her usual orbit of admirers, cheerleaders with ponytails like golden whips, jocks with Letterman jackets slung over broad shoulders. She looked perfect, as always, hair straight and glossy, falling like a shampoo commercial waterfall down her back. Makeup flawless, winged liner sharp enough to cut glass, lips a bold berry stain that screamed confidence. Phone in hand, thumb scrolling lazily, as if curating her empire one swipe at a time. She saw me, and she smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind we'd shared over stolen sips of my mom's boxed wine during sleepovers. No, this was a satisfied one. Slow and serpentine, curling at the edges like smoke from a victory cigar. Her eyes locked on mine, cool and unblinking, and in that gaze, I saw it, triumph. Like she had won something, a crown, a throne. A war I didn't even know we were fighting. That day I learned something important. A lesson etched into my soul with the precision of a scalpel. The worst betrayal does not come from strangers, those faceless shadows who brush past you in the grocery store aisle. It comes from the person who knows where to. I am the one who's mapped your vulnerabilities like a treasure map, X marking the spot where it hurts the most. Before I tell you what I did years later, pause with me here, in the wreckage of that Tuesday. Imagine the raw scrape of it all. The burn of humiliation, the sting of isolation, the hollow echo of trust shattered like cheap glass. Tell me something, whisper it to yourself if you must. Someone destroyed your reputation at 17. When your whole world was still forming like wet clay, would you forgive them? Or would you wait? Would you let the embers of that pain smolder, banking them into a fire that could one day roar back to life? Because I waited, and oh, reader, what came next was a slow burn worth every agonizing second, asterisk asterisk. The picture was real. Undeniably, inescapably real, a snapshot of a girl on the cusp of womanhood, caught in a private glow that was never meant for the harsh light of public eyes. But the story behind it, that was fiction, spun from the threads of jealousy and malice, a tale Hannah crafted to elevate herself on the pyre of my downfall. 3 weeks before that fateful Tuesday, I'd been talking to a boy named Marcus. He wasn't from our tight-knit circle in Willow Creek. No, he was from the next county over, in Hannah's cousin's class at Ridgeview High. Quiet type, with tousled dark hair that fell over his forehead like he didn't care enough to comb it, and a laugh that bubbled up low and genuine, like creek water over smooth stones. Funny in that dry, understated way, sending memes at midnight about our shared hatred of algebra, or quoting lines from old horror movies to make me snort laugh into my pillow. Kind, too, or at least that's what I told myself in the glow of our late-night texts. He asked about my dreams nursing, maybe to help people like my mom after her factory shifts. Shared his photography, capturing the wild edges of small-town life. And for those fleeting days, it felt like connection, a bridge over the loneliness that had started creeping in since Dad left. We texted for days, hours bleeding into the night, my phone lighting up under the covers like a secret lighthouse. Small dreams exchanged like currency. Someday I'll road trip the coast, camera in hand. Big plans sketched in emojis, palm trees, sunsets, freedom from Willow Creek's suffocating embrace. Silly jokes that had me stifling giggles so I wouldn't wake Mom, puns about Nurse's vein trying to save the day. Or how Marcus's dog was basically a furry therapist. Then one night, as the clock ticked past 11 and the house creaked in the autumn wind, rattling the gutters, he asked for a photo. Just something to see her smile, he typed, followed by a winking emoji that made my cheeks flush. Just for me, promise. I hesitated. God, did I hesitate? Staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror, the one with the chipped frame from when Hannah and I had danced to boy band songs in middle school. I waited, 17 and fumbling through first. So what if this was trust? What if this was the start of something real? My fingers hovered over the send button, heart hammering like a drum solo. But I trusted him. That was my mistake. The chink in my armor. That Hannah would later exploit with surgical precision. I hit send. The whoosh of the message felt final, irrevocable. Like tossing a stone into a still pond and watching the ripples spread. The next day, he stopped replying. No good morning texts, no follow-up joke, just silence, thick and accusatory, stretching into hours, then days. I replayed our chats obsessively, searching for the misstep, the sign I'd missed. By Wednesday, doubt had rooted deep, twisting like bindweed in my gut. 2 days later, Friday. Under the fluorescent buzz of the school library where Hannah and I usually crammed for history tests, she asked strange questions. We were huddled over dog-eared textbooks, the air smelling of old paper and vending machine coffee, when she leaned in, her vanilla-scented perfume cloying. Are you serious with Marcus? Like, for real? I shrugged, playing it cool, though my pulse betrayed me. Just talking. Why? Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable, curiosity, calculation. Did you send him anything? You know, like, pics. Her tone was different. Not the bubbly lilt of our sleepover confessions, but curious, sharp, like a blade testing its edge. I lied. Heat rising in my face, I forced a laugh. No way. What do you take me for? Inside, panic clawed. How did she know? Had he told her? But she was my best friend. She'd laugh it off, right? We'd bond over the idiocy of boys. 3 weeks passed in a blur of avoidance. I dodged Marcus's socials, buried myself in AP bio notes, pretended the unanswered texts didn't sting like paper cuts. Willow Creek marched on football games under Friday night lights, bonfires by the creek where kids smuggled beers and shared secrets. The annual harvest fair with its caramel apples and hay rides that masked the undercurrent of small-town gossip. I smiled through it all, the fracture hidden like a fault line waiting to quake. Then came that Tuesday, the post, the unraveling. I later found out what happened, pieced together from whispers and deleted messages, like a detective sifting through crime scene debris. Marcus and Hannah had been talking the whole time, not just casual cousin chit-chat, but something orchestrated, a duet of deception. Turns out, she'd slid into his DMs weeks before I ever did, fishing for compliments, angling for his attention, like a pro. When he chose to text me, first innocent flirty, drawn to my quiet humor over her spotlight-seeking sparklet, bruised her ego, badly. They thought it was funny, a game. He showed her the picture one drunken weekend at a party, the bass thumping through red Solo cups, laughter sloshing like spilled beer. Check this out, he'd said, and she snatched the phone, eyes lighting up with that predatory gleam. She asked him to send it to her for safekeeping. She couldn't, he did, the traitor. And she posted it. Not in a fit of rage, but with cool deliberation, timing it for maximum impact, late enough for the night owls to catch it, early enough for the morning scroll to ignite the blaze. Why? 'Cause she liked attention, the dopamine hit of notifications, the throne of Queen Bee. In Willow Creek High's hive. Because she was bored. The glitter of her perfect life starting to tarnish under the weight of unspoken insecurities her parents. Constant fights echoing through their split level on Elm Street. The pressure to be flawless in a town that devoured. Flawsy 'cause she wanted to remind everyone who ruled our little kingdom. And I was not it. Never had been, in her eyes. I was the sidekick, the safe harbor, until I dared to sail solo. When I confronted her after school, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones on the path behind the bleachers, she did not deny it. The air was crisp, carrying the distant hum of the paper mill, but it did nothing to cool the fire in my veins. "Why, Hannah? Why me?" She leaned against the chain link fence, arms crossed like a shield, her cheer uniform still pristine despite practice. "You sent it," she said, voice flat, devoid of remorse. "It's your fault for being so, easy." I remember that sentence clearly, the way it landed like a slap. "It's your fault." 4 words that absolved her, indicted me, and sealed our friendship's tomb. She told people I was desperate, weaving a narrative as sticky as spider silk. Emily begged him for attention. She'd whisper in the girls' bathroom stalls, mirrors, fogged from laughter. She lied about being innocent, total fake. She painted me as the villain in her hero's tale, the girl who chased validation like a junkie, while she played the whistleblower, exposing truth for the greater good. Within days, my name changed. From Emily Harper, the girl who volunteered at the animal shelter and baked cookies for the bake sale, to that girl, a moniker spat in passing, typed in anonymous yik-yak posts, scrawled in Sharpie on my locker, "That girl strikes again," clung like damp fog, seeping into every interaction. I stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria, where the clatter of trays and roar of chatter had once felt like home. Instead, I'd hide in the stairwell, picking at a PB&J that tasted like ash. Scrolling through the comments until my eyes burned. I stopped answering calls, mom's worried voicemails piling up, friends, what few remained, ghosting into awkward silences. I stopped trusting people, building walls higher than the old water tower on Hill Road, brick by invisible brick. The school did nothing. Principal Whitaker called it teen drama in a stuffy office meeting with my mom. Her eyes read from endless parent-teacher pleat. "Kids will be kids," he said, shuffling papers like it was a parking ticket. No suspension, no counseling, just a vague promise of monitoring. In Willow Creek, where the football coach's son once keyed a rival's truck and got a slap on the wrist, social media sins were invisible ink. Marcus transferred schools a month later, vanishing to some private academy upstate. His Instagram scrubbed clean. Coward. Hannah became more popular, her follower count surging like a fever, dream invites to every party, crowns at homecoming, whispers of college scouts eyeing her leadership. And I became quiet, a ghost in my own life, slipping through classes with head down, grades slipping like sand through fingers. That was the year I learned how powerful silence can be. Because when you stop reacting, when you swallow the screams and stare down the stairs, people start wondering. The laughs falter, the stares linger a beat too long, curiosity creeping in where cruelty once reigned. But I was not planning revenge. Not yet. The seed was there, buried deep in the fertile soil of my rage, but survival came first. Eat, study, breathe. One foot in front of the other on the cracked sidewalks of Willow Creek. Graduation came like a exhale, caps tossed under a sky bruised with thunderclouds. Mom snapping photos with her ancient flip phone, her pride a balm on my wounds. I hugged her tight, smelling of lavender soap and unyielding love, and whispered, "I'm outta here." Community college first, a 40-minute bus ride to the sprawling campus in Milford, where anonymity was a gift. Cheap textbooks, ramen noodles, and late-night study sessions in the library's fluorescent hum. Then nursing school, the grind of it all forging me like steel in a forge endless dissections in biolab, the metallic temps of formaldehyde clinging to my skin. Clinical rotations, where the beeps of monitors became my lullaby. Nothing glamorous. No silver spoon scholarships or trust funds, just hard work. The kind that leaves calluses on your soul. Long shifts at the diner on weekends, flipping burgers for truckers who tipped in quarters, grease staining my uniform like war paint. Double jobs during summer's nannying for the Milford elite, wiping sticky fingers and soothing tantrums, all while dreaming of scrubs and stethoscopes. Cheap apartments shared with strangers, the walls thin enough to hear their arguments, the rent a monthly guillotine hovering over my bank account. Hannah stayed in Willow Creek. Or at least her digital ghost did. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of envy bait. Parties at the old quarry, bonfires licking the stars. Tropical trips funded by her dad's overtime at the mill. Her bikini-clad poses screaming, living my best life. New relationships cycled like seasons, each boyfriend more chiseled than the last, captioned with her ties and soulmate SCN. Her life looked perfect online, a curated facade of sun-kissed filters and spontaneous adventures. Mine, invisible. No posts, no stories, just the quiet accrual of a life rebuilt from the rubble. But here's something people do not understand. A truth I carried like a talisman through those lean years. Pain can either break you or build you. Skin splinter you into shards, leaving you jagged and irreparable, or it can temper you, forging resilience from the flames. For me, it built focusal, laser-sharp determination that cut through doubt like a scalpel through silk. I graduated top of my nursing class, my name etched on the dean's list like a quiet victory. Emily Harper, the professor, read at commencement. And for the first time in years, it didn't echo with that girl. I got hired at a hospital in the city, not the gleaming towers of downtown glamour, but St. Mary's, a mid-sized brick behemoth on the edge of Milford, where the ER smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Steady paychecks deposited like clockwork, enough for a one-bedroom walk-up with actual windows that let in sunlight. Steady jobs built steady lives, brick by brick. A savings account with 3 figures, a coffee maker that didn't wheeze, friendships forged in room banter with nurses who swapped war stories over vending machine chips. 5 years passed in that rhythm, shifts blending into a tapestry of 4 drips and midnight codes. Laughter with colleagues over botched phlebotomies, the rare weekend hike along the creek trails where Willow Creek felt like a distant memory. I barely thought about her anymore. Hannah's face faded like an old Polaroid, the betrayal a scar rather than an open wound. I'd unfollowed, blocked, buried it deep. Life moved on. Why shouldn't I? Until one night, a Thursday, the clock edging toward 10 p.m. The ERA whirlwind of chaos under buzzing hell. Car accident victims wheeled in on stretchers, sirens wailing like banshees. A kid with food poisoning from the county fairs, dubious hot dogs, retching into basins. An elderly man with a broken wrist from a slip on icy steps, his wife clutching rosary beads in the waiting room. The air hummed with urgency beeps, shouts, the metallic clatter of carts racing down corridors. Then the nurse at the front desk, Carla with her no-nonsense bun and tattooed forearms, called my name over the intercom. Emily, can you take room 12? Abdominal distress. Female mid-20s. I nodded, grabbing the chart, my Crocs squeaking on the linoleum as I pushed through the curtain. The room was dim, lit by the harsh glow of a bedside lamp, the monitors casting blue shadows on the walls. She sat on the hospital bed, curled slightly, one hand pressed to her stomach like she could will the pain away. No makeup, her face pale and slick with sweat, blonde hair tangled and unwashed, eyes red from crying, lashes clumped like weary soldiers. For a second, I thought I imagined it. Blinked hard, as if rubbing my eyes could erase the ghost. But she looked up, her gaze locking on mine, and recognition dawned like a THUNDERCLAP. Hannah. Collins dot in my ER in my domain. Shock rippled across her features, first eyes widening, lips parting in a silent gasp. Then fear, raw and unfiltered, her knuckles whitening on the bedsheet. Embarrassment bloomed last, a flush creeping up her neck, turning her cheeks the color of overripe apples. Emily, she said softly, her voice a cracked whisper, stripped of its old bravado. I nodded, professional mask slipping into place like armor. Yes, I work here. The words came out steady, but inside. A storm stirred old winds howling through the chambers of my heart. Life has a strange sense of humor, doesn't it? The kind that's equal parts cosmic joke and poetic justice. The girl who once made my life small, who weaponized my trust to build her pedestal, was now sitting in my care. Alone. No entourage of sycophants. No adoring boyfriend snapping pics for the gram. No makeup to hide the lines of regret etching her face. No perfect lighting. No Valencia filter to soften the edge of ice. Just reality, stark and unforgiving. Under the hum of fluorescent truth. She had severe abdominal pain, lower right quadrant. Tender to palpation, rebound suggesting peritonitis. Possible appendicitis, the chart noted, with a site of nausea and fever. Labs pending, but surgery loomed on the horizon like a guillotine blade. Her boyfriend, some guy named Tyler from her stories, had dropped her off in a panic and peeled out, muttering about work. Insurance issues flagged in red ink. Lapsed policy, outstanding bills from a previous AR visit. I flipped through the file discreetly. No stable job listed. Just freelance social media consultant, which in Willow Creek code meant sporadic gigs and mounting debt. Missed payments on student loans, a credit score that wouldn't buy a candy bar. The perfect online life had cracks fissures wide enough to swallow her whole. She tried to smile. A weak twitch of lips that didn't reach her eyes. "I guess you're winning now," she said, her voice laced with a bitterness that tasted like defeat. It was meant to sting, a feeble jab from a cornered animal, but it landed flat, absorbed by the Kevlar of my growth. I did not respond. Not with words, anyway. I checked her vitals, blood pressure elevated at 140/90ths, pulse thready at 102, temp spiking to 101.2. Noted the dry heaves into the emesis basin, the way her breath hitched with each prod of my gloved fingers. Did my job professional come? The Emily of 5 years ago might have lashed out, words flying like shrapnel. But this Emily, she observed, detached, a scientist cataloging symptoms. Inside, though, something old woke up. Not the wildfire of anger that had consumed me at 17, nor the cold hatred I'd nursed in the dark. Memory, vivid, visceral, the hallway stairs, the locker graffiti, the way her smile had sliced deeper than any knife. It uncoiled in my chest, a serpent stirring from slumber, tasting the air. Do you believe in karma, reader? The universe's ledger, balancing scales with invisible hands? Or do you believe people create their own, planting seeds of spite that bloom into thorns they must one day reap? Hannah's surgery was scheduled for the next morning, laparoscopic appendectomy. Routine but urgent. It was not life-threatening yet, but appendicitis has a way of turning vicious, perforation leading to sepsis in hours. She was scared. I could see it in the way her eyes darted to the ivy pole, the monitors, the door as if escape were an option. Her fingers twisted the thin blanket, knuckles bone white, breath shallow like a cornered fawn at midnight. During my final check before break, the ward quieting to a murmur of distant pages and muffled coughs, she looked at me and whispered, "Do you hate me?" The question hung in the air, fragile as spun glass. 5 years ago, in the raw aftermath of her betrayal, I would have said yes, screamed it, hurled it like a grenade. But standing there in scrubs, stethoscope cool against my collarbone, holding her chart like a shield, I felt something different. I felt power. And power feels calm, doesn't it? A steady hum, not a roar river carving canyons over time, unhurried and unstoppable. "You hurt me," I said honestly, my voice even, measured. No accusations, no histrionics, just truth, laid bare like an open wound. She nodded, slow and deliberate, tears welling in her eyes like dew on They brimmed, then spilled, tracing salty paths down her cheeks. "I was stupid," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush, cracked and contrite. "I was jealous. So damn jealous. Jealous?" That surprised me, a jolt like stepping on a live wire. Of what? The girl she'd reduced to whispers and shadows. But she explained, quietly, her voice weaving through the beeps of the heart monitor like a confessional thread. She'd liked Marcus too, flirted shamelessly at that family barbecue over the summer. batting lashes and laughing too loud at his jokes. When he chose to text me first, ignoring her siren call, it ignited something ugly in her, a green-eyed monster that whispered she wasn't enough. So she wanted to win. Her version of winning, stealing the photo, twisting the knife, reclaiming her crown by dethroning me. For attention, that hollow currency of likes and shares. For ego, the fragile balloon she'd inflated with every validation. For a few hundred likes that faded by morning, leaving her emptier than before. She started crying then. Real crying, the kind that racks your body and leaves you hollowed out. Not the dramatic, pretty sobs of Instagram reels with perfect mascara. Runs and ethereal lighting, messy, snotty, shoulders heaving, face contorted, the kind of ugly vulnerability that strips you bare. I didn't think it'd go that far, she gasped between sobs. The comments, the way they turned on you. I just wanted to feel big again. I'm so sorry, I'm sorry. 5 years too late. But still, sorry. The word hung there, insufficient yet seismic, a crack in the fortress of her facade. I could have humiliated her. Oh, the temptations swirled like vultures, reminding her of every vicious DM, every lie she'd spread like wildfire through the group chats. I could have pulled out my phone, scrolled to archived screenshots I'd kept like talismans, read her own words back to her. She's desperate. Total thought, I could have said. It's your fault. Echoing her old indictment, watching it boomerang and strike her down. Called in favors from the other nurses, let the shift gossip mill grind her story into dust. Or worse, whispered to Tyler. When he returned, plant seeds of doubt about the queen he'd left behind. Instead, I said something simple. Pulled a tissue from the box, handed it over without flourish. Tomorrow you'll have surgery. Focus on getting better. That's what matters. Now, that was it. No dramatic speech, no soliloquy of righteous fury, no revenge speech laced with poetic barbs. Just calm. A quiet reclamation of the high ground. I adjusted her pillow, dimmed the light, and slipped out, the curtain whispering shut behind me. Like a final curtain call, the next morning dawned gray through the slatted blinds. The surgical team bustling like bees in a hive. Hannah went into surgery at 8:15, prepped, draped, wheeled away on a gurney that rattled like old bones. I wasn't assigned to her case, but I checked in from the recovery wing, curiosity a thin veil over deeper currents. It went well. Appendix removed, clean margins, no complications, stable vitals, post-op color returning to her cheeks like hesitant dawn. She slept through the afternoon, doped on pain meds, the room filling with the soft symphony of monitors and muffled pages. 3 days later, she was discharged, antibiotics prescribed, follow-up with a surgeon in Willow Creek, strict orders. For rest and hydration, the boyfriend showed up sporadically, more hindrance than help, arguing in the hallway about bills while she winced from the sofa. Before leaving, wheeled to the exit in a haze of paperwork and plastic bags of meds, she asked for my number. We could ... talk, catch up, make it right. I refused politely, chart in hand, smile professional as porcelain. I wish you well, Hannah. Truly, that's enough for me. She looked ashamed, head bowed, eyes downcast, the weight of years pressing on her shoulders. No retort, no deflection, just a nod, small and swallowed, as the doors whooshed open to the parking lot drizzle, and I realized something important in that moment. As rain pattered on the awning like tentative applause, the revenge I imagined at 17 very explosive. A public evisceration that would leave her in tatters felt powerful in fantasy. A blaze to match the one she'd lit under me. But the real revenge, it was different, subtler, more profound. It was becoming someone she could never hurt again. Rising from the ashes, not as a phoenix of flames, but as an oak-rooted, unyielding branches stretching toward light she couldn't touch. It was watching her realize, in that sterile room with its beeping truths, that she no longer had power over me, Her barbs glanced off, her tears evaporated in the face of my indifference. It was choosing not to be her, not the girl who built empires on others' ruins, who chased validation like a mirage. No, I'd chosen substance over sparkle, quiet strength over shouted supremacy. 2 months later, something unexpected happened. Not a thunderclap, not a viral takedown, but a ripple that spread like ink in water. She posted on Instagram, but not what you think, not a thirst trap or a humble brag vacation slide. A long apology, raw and unfiltered, the kind that takes guts to hit, share on. 10 years ago, I was the villain in someone's story. It began, her face in the photo bare and earnest. No filters to soften the lines of regret. I betrayed my best friend, Emily Harper, in the worst way. Posted a private photo without consent, spread lies to feel superior. It destroyed her world, and I let it for likes, for ego, for a crown that was never mine. Emily, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. From the bottom of my broken heart, you didn't deserve that. No one does. #own your mistakes, #high school horrors, she tagged me. Publicly. The post laid it all bare, the jealousy. The photo, the fallout without excusing, without deflection. It didn't go mega viral, no millions of views or celebrity retweets. But in Willow Creek's echo chamber, and spilling into Milford's wider net, people saw it. Comments poured in, not all kind, but honest, old classmates confessing their silence. I laughed then. I'm ashamed now. Moms from the PTA sharing their own scars. Even Marcus, from whatever hideout he'd burrowed into, liked it quietly. A ghost's atonement. Some messaged me directly, apologies trickling in like rain after drought. I was a jerk for believing that crap. Sorry, you were always the strong one. I see it now. For believing rumors. For staying silent when voices could have drowned out the hate. For laughing when solidarity might have shifted the tide. That day, scrolling through them in my apartment, coffee steaming on the windowsill as city lights twinkled below, I did not feel revenge. Not the bitter triumph I'd scripted in my angsty journals. I felt closure. Real closure does not scream from rooftops or explode in confetti chaos. It does not demand blood or bows. It arrives quietly, like peace settling over a battlefield after the smoke clears, like the first deep breath after holding it for years. Lungs expanding with clean, untainted air. Now I want to ask you something. As the story folds to its gentle end, picture yourself in that hospital room, the air thick with beeps and regret, her eyes pleading across the divide. If you were in my place, guard, but standing tall, would you have heard her back? Unleashed the pent-up storm, made her pay in kind with words as weapons? Or would you have done what I did, extend grace not as weakness, but as the ultimate flex? Walk away not broken, but whole. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is not destroying someone, leaving them in ruins at your feet. It is becoming someone untouchable, a force of quiet thunder, echoing long after their storm has passed. In the end, the real win isn't her fall, it's your rise. And reader, if this tale stirs something in you, the ache of old wounds, the spark of your own unyielding light, share it, let it ripple. Because stories like this, they don't just heal the teller, they remind us all, we are survivors, you're unbreakable.